Hey guys, it's Alex again, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the words unless and except. And I'm making a separate video for these words specifically, solely because in my experience, people tend to have a lot of trouble understanding these words and how they work on the LSAT. So, in simple terms, the words unless and except, and any other word that indicates an exception to something, the falsehood of the idea is a sufficient condition for the truth of the exception. So what I mean by that is if you have a sentence that outlines an exception to some sort of idea, if we know that that idea is false, that is sufficient, or in other words, it's guaranteed to lead to that exception being true. And that's kind of confusing to understand in just explaining it like that. So to make it a little bit more clear for you guys, I came up with an example. So in this sentence, it says, I will certainly have a bad day unless I drink my morning coffee. And that word unless is a word that kind of indicates an exception. So for this sentence, I will certainly have a bad day. That is the idea. That is the idea that the exception is referring to. And what comes after this unless, in this situation, sometimes the unless is positioned at the beginning of the sentence, meaning the exception will come before the idea. So make sure you stay aware of that. But in this case, what comes after the unless is going to be our exception. And our exception is unless I drink my morning coffee. So, since we know that the falsehood of the idea is a sufficient condition for the truth of the exception, I know that if I did not have a bad day, that we can guarantee the truth that I drink my morning coffee. Because in this sentence, this unless is indicating that the second clause right here is an exception. Now, when we go over here, we can see how that kind of works with the conditional logic framework we've been working on. So this is our idea being false, which is the subset, since it's a sufficient condition. So days that are not bad, according to this right here, is a subset for all the days I drink my morning coffee. So what that tells us is that just because the exception is true, that's not enough to guarantee that the idea is true. So for example, in this sentence, just because I drink my morning coffee, that does not necessarily mean that I am not going to have a bad day. But on the other hand, if I knew that I did not have a bad day, then I know I drink my morning coffee. Solely because drinking the morning coffee, or in other words, the truth of the exception, is a necessary condition for the falsehood of the main idea. So, with that being said, now we just have to use our traditional conditional logic framework. So we know that if the idea is false, which is right here, because it's not a bad day, whereas the idea is a bad day. If the idea is false, that's sufficient to conclude that the exception is true. Because situations where that idea is false serves as a subset of situations where the exception is true. So, in other words, me not having a bad day, that is a subset of me drinking my morning coffee on those days. Which means that I could drink my morning coffee and still have a bad day. So now if we translate that to our arrow diagrams here, we know that the falsehood of the idea, me not having a bad day, is sufficient to conclude that I drink my morning coffee. And likewise, if we deny the truth of the exception, which in this case is a superset, if we deny the fact that I drink my morning coffee that day, then we're also going to deny the sufficient condition, which is the falsity of the idea. So if I knew that I did not drink my morning coffee, I can for certain conclude that I indeed had a bad day. And that's what's going on down here. If I didn't drink my morning coffee, that is sufficient to conclude that I had a bad day. And that's all I have. Again, this is kind of a confusing topic, so if you guys are still confused, please let me know and I can help you out some more with this, because for me personally, it took a little bit for me to master how those specific words work on the LSAT. Thanks for watching.